right, being 10 o'clock, call the Infrastructure Committee to order. Notice the meeting was properly posted on March the 10th. Item number 1 is discussion and possible action on our minutes of February the 28th.
Move to accept.
Second.
Motion and second to approve. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Item 2 is discussion and possible action regarding the prioritization of road and bridge projects to be sent to ODOT for their 8-year program. Stacy.
You guys just kind of deferred this for a couple of weeks so you could study it further. This is the plan I would recommend that we submit.
Hey, Stace, on the bridge on 108th Westminster. Remind me if we've gotten started, if so, where we're at on that.
This will be the one that we submit for this year's federal BR money. It likely will go to bid letting this fall.
Okay. And then on the 2 projects above that, the Luther Road is in the design stages, correct?
That's correct.
And the Covell and MacArthur?
It's on the July letting.
It's on the July letting. Okay. And then we've got some more of our Luther Road project that's in design.
Yeah, the whole corridor is under design.
Correct.
We're getting hung up in environmental.
And which section of that, again, remind me, was it that we just recently did environmentals on?
I believe it was in the Luther area because it was on the north end. They used to be District 1 projects, now they're District 3.
Does it match up with what we're doing environmental wise with the private entity to help us? Does it match up with
I'm
this?
planning on doing environmental on all of them, so.
Right, but we're submitting a plan for Luther Road that we haven't got environmental clearance on yet as the number one.
Yeah, we don't have it anywhere. We don't have clearance anywhere. We've got one contract approved to start. They haven't started, but that would be on the piece. It's number 11.
So that's the old D1 that we were shepherding through. And that's the piece that you just sought environmental help with. And it's 11th on the list.
Yes. I kind of have a strategy there.
And then, so the board approves this list. What is the flexibility to later come back and address in the event?
You have to submit it every year. So,
right, but within the year.
Oh, within the year?
Are we going to tie up funds that are potentially designated to Oklahoma County because we have a list that has projects prioritized that don't have?
Part of the problem is they're not really offering us any funds. And I'm trying to get the thing changed to where we get more money offered to us.
So it's okay.
Yeah.
And then one of my concerns on here is where you have and I know the Wilshire Road Bridge. You know, we've done work out there to try to protect that bridge, but you've indicated in past meetings that you thought we needed to add another span. Is that right?
Yes, that would be what I think the consultant will come up with. We have an engineer working on this now, kind of heading through a FEMA process, and then the Corps, I've got new information on what they might do with this. It's still quite a ways out from any construction, but it definitely needs to be on the first page, of this document. I say that, but this is really for ODOT, and I don't think we'll end up getting any ODOT funds on that. I think it'll come from a different program, like a FEMA or core program, the construction.
So back to my original question, we're submitting a list of projects prioritized that really don't have any chance of A, getting funding at this point, or have no funding at this point, and B, we're not ready to go with, but for one.
Yeah, there's 2 projects ready to go, number 2 and number 3. And the rest of them aren't quite ready, and there's no funding offered to us anyway.
So wouldn't it make sense that 2 and 3 would bump up the list if they're ready to go?
Well, again, part of my strategy with ODOT, my number 1 on the list, they need to get environmental started on that, and they're not moving. We don't have that engineering contract, so we can't do environmental on that if we wanted to. ODOT has that contract, and I've asked them to do environmental for months, and they're slow playing.
All right, you guys have any thoughts?
This will eventually go to the commissioners, so if you guys want to come from this committee as a recommendation, you can vote on it, or if you don't, I've been taking it just as a recommendation from me.
Joe, do you have any reservations going ahead and recommending this at this point?
No, I don't think so, with the understanding that
Well, this isn't actually tying us down. This is trying to spur on a level of cooperation, right?
That's the way I would characterize it.
Well,
The
that's,
way I've got
but
it.
that's,
Yeah,
good.
but-
Is that going to be the actual effect of this, though?
Well, I hope so.
is this project number 1 on the current list? The list that we previously submitted to ODOT is number one there?
I can't remember, but it was pretty high. If it wasn't 1, it was pretty high.
I move we go ahead and recommend this to the BOCC.
I'll second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second to recommend the plan as presented to the board. All in favor?
Aye.
I get what you're trying to do, Stacy, but okay, aye. Three, discussion possible action regarding courthouse elevator upgrades.
We're still on track as far as the timeline is concerned. A pleasant surprise late last week. Kone, they were here working on other things, but also the machine parts necessary to put the A elevator in the courthouse back in operation were installed. They didn't tell us anything, but miraculously the A elevator was working last week. And I hope it continues to do so.
And that's how many cars now serving the public over there?
That is 3 passenger cars available to serve the public, plus the jail elevator. And at last check, all 4 were operational.
Okay. And then when we begin this upgrade process, we're going to drop to 2 elevators again, correct?
We'll drop to 2 elevators. 1 will be taken out of service, and depending on the problems we have, we could go to maybe 1 elevator over there if we have problems with units that are in operation.
And my impression is that everyone has been well informed that we're going to be undertaking this project and that we will be down to 2 elevators over there, correct?
Or fewer, yes.
Well, right. Hopefully that is. Thank you, Gretchen. Okay, so just so everybody understands, we have 3 now, but in order to enhance the capability into the future, we're going to be taking 1 down for an extended period of time, and we're going to need to make adjustments for the foreseeable future when that occurs.
Yes.
And everyone is aware.
We'll do our best to make sure that
remind and-
if they're not aware now, they will be when they wait on the elevator in the lobby over there.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Keith, is the foreseeable future that Joe just referred to the same foreseeable future that was the schedule that you've submitted to us?
The schedule was set back a couple months.
Okay, that's all I need to know. Thank you.
I talk with Kone regularly, and now there's not been any change to the schedule as adjusted.
And there's no different prognosis on the jail elevator, right?
Right.
Okay, thank you.
All right, is there a motion regarding Keith's report?
I'll move to accept it.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. 4, discuss possible action regarding a service agreement with Vicinity.
Nothing new there. I talk with them whenever they return the phone call and continue to apply pressure. They said the contract is in their legal department at this point in time.
If we are unable to reach terms with them, what options are available?
The options could include rebuilding the boilers that are on site on the location or replacing them here, installing chillers to serve the courthouse annex and ICB that were removed initially when Vicinity began, installation of chilled water generation equipment here. Also, the possibility of building a new central plant to serve the Vicinity off-site. It could be built to serve any number of customers. That's an option. I can't begin to assign any kind of figures to this, but just to provide chilled water and steam, there are other options. They are expensive and they do take time.
If we were with Vicinity or their other iteration for 30 plus years, correct?
Right.
So in some ways, we're kind of held hostage at this point.
To some extent, yes. We're we don't have any place else to go. We can, in a pinch, if you wanted to do so, employ mobile chillers, trailer or skid mounted chillers. That's a last resort generally, and done in an emergency situation because they're loud, noisy, and they take up space. But that can be done.
So as these discussions have gone on now for a while, and as you mentioned, there are alternatives, but you haven't put pen to paper. I, for one, would be interested in beginning to see some of those costs for the alternatives that you outlined. I don't know about them, but I would.
I can put some rough figures together. Also, when it comes to using electric-driven refrigeration compressors, OG&E might be a partner there for us. Everything that is generated now is done so using natural gas. I know that OG&E would be interested in our efforts there and might partner. So I can put some numbers together for you.
Yeah, I think it's in our best interest to at least have an idea of what our possibilities are, what the expenses are. I mean, while the upfront cost may be high, it seems the back end costs would be, and there might be the ability to sell some of that excess if there is excess.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas here we're just continuing to pay rent.
Yep.
So
And the possibility to utilize new technology, which would be energy saving in the long run.
Do you think, Keith, you could have some of those rough numbers to us for our next meeting? Begin the process of having.
I can begin the process. Yeah, the
And
numbers are going to
update us?
be
Okay.
rough and difficult to forecast.
Okay.
Hey, how much confidence can you put in generating what your anticipated cost from, what are they called now?
Vicinity,
Yeah. Do you have very much confidence that you can,
forecast those
yeah,
numbers.
what their numbers will be? Because that'll determine that will greatly affect your ROI calculations that you come up with.
That's true. That's true. We calculate usage and costs daily. So I'm tracking those kinds of things. Thank you, Megan Detterman and Sandy McKenzie. They track those costs and usage figures daily for us to use as baselines. And as it relates to operating the system here, rather than use some of the digital controls at our disposal, we'll do things manually. But those costs, those price increases.
And that's more where I was going. What do you
Yeah.
think Vicinity is going to charge us, not what we'll use actually.
Well, no, it's a combination of both.
No, I understand that, but I mean, I think you'd be really good at what, forecasting what we expect to have. Hey, just a general statement, is this true that we pretty much have all of our boilers intact, but our chillers were all removed?
Correct. When you say intact, they're mothballed, but I'm not sure as to what condition they're in.
Right, yeah. Because it's been 35 years since we've used them, correct?
Mhm.
Okay,
Or
That's all.
longer.
that's the only questions I have, and I agree with you to get that,
Thank
calculation
Okay, do
done.
you have anything? Okay. All
I
right.
move to accept the report.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Thank you, Keith. 5, discussion of possible action on an update for our capital projects for tip 2.
And no update this week.
Okay. No action unless you have questions. Okay. 6, discussion of possible action regarding the tip 2 and tip 8 budgets.
And no changes.
Just one quick question, Stace. In terms of all the reimbursements we have out on these 2 TIFs, everything is back, completed, that we've got completed, we've been reimbursed for?
Yes, except on the new tip, the third one we got, we're trying to put something together on the ICB, and we're putting documents together now.
And that, remind me that the new TIF is which one?
What's called TIF? I call it TIF 3 because it's the third one we've received.
Is it, sorry, I didn't.
We
look.
haven't had any reimbursements on it thus far.
Is it included in your breakdown here?
No.
Can you begin to put that in? Because I had actually forgotten about that.
Right.
Okay.
I'll do.
All right. Anything else? Yeah.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 7 is discussion of possible action on our XXX project.
Everything remains on track. I'm going out there this afternoon, actually.
Charles, you have anything? Okay. Motion to receive?
Yes, so moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 8, discussion of possible action on our capital improvements list. Any changes?
No changes.
Okay, any questions?
No.
Okay, no action then. 9, discussion of possible action on the transfer, maintenance, and repair of security infrastructure equipment in and around the courthouse annex and the ICB.
Really no new updates. We're working with the sheriff's office to identify the vendors they use currently to bring them out, assess the condition of the equipment that's employed. I understand much of it is end of life. So other than that, really nothing new.
Run, Sheriff?
Yeah, the only thing we would have to add, we wanted to come in today and just see what the progress was. And the only reoccurring cost that we've identified is a contract to Smith. Who's it? Smith Detection, which is annual maintenance of the X-ray machines, which are very maintenance intensive. That they have to, just by virtue of the way that they function, they have to be inspected and calibrated and all that to make sure they're safe to operate. But and I think that came in at like 23,000 a year, 23,600. So that's where we're at with the question I think that Mr. Monroe had asked one of our people about. We So it's a little bit back and forth. Like I said, we just wanted to come in and kind of see where we were at, what, if anybody was waiting on anything from us.
I've asked this several times, but since you're in the room, ask you as well. Involvement on the part of our IT department going forward, and are they involved in any of these conversations?
I don't know if we've reached out to them or not.
They were well aware, and they will have
Well,
to be
aware
involved.
is different than are they involved?
Not at this point.
Okay.
They will be.
Can we get them more actively engaged then? Okay, thank you. All right, and then you're also here for the ICB meeting too, right? This,
Here, I don't know.
yeah, okay. All right, is there a motion to receive that report?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Item 10, discussion possible action to fund forensic work with a potential crack in the annex foundation. Boy, that sounds dangerous.
Well, we don't know yet. If you know where
Exactly,
the,
that's my point.
at the foot of the stairs, where that elevator goes to the tunnel system. You following me? Where we're at. We found this crack, actually HR found it. Next slide. And keep going with the slide. All right, go back to the first one. That crack is just in the plaster, and it goes, up the wall, across the ceiling, down the other wall, and then it's above as well. So it is a definite crack. But we don't know what's behind that plaster, how bad the foundation is or is not. So the first thing we have to do is remove this plaster so that we can see. And I guess that's the more involved than it sounds. Keith can explain it better to you. He's talked to a vendor on how they would actually remove the plaster so that we can get a good look at what's behind it. And then we can do a better assessment. My thought was the funding that this committee gets, you get a certain amount of money every year. We would just start spending money out of that on this deal. The first part would be, less than 10,000. And then we would be able to determine if it's going to be just a small problem or a big problem after that point.
So we're going to hire a vendor to remove the plaster, and then we're going to hire another, I would assume, engineer
Structural.
to investigate.
Evaluate what's behind that plaster.
And that'll, since it's a professional service, you'll just use a pre-approved list.
Exactly.
Okay. All right.
Now on the vendor for the plaster, we'll have to get quotes probably on that. Chantel will have to help us with that.
Stacy, again, this is located where? I'm sorry.
Well, if you go into the tunnel system, you can either there's an elevator that goes down there or there's a set of stairs. It's right at the base of the stairs or right where you turn in to go in the elevators where you'll see that crack on the plaster.
That location is where the concourse tunnel meets the foundation of the annex building in two places. At the concourse level, that opening, and directly above, across from the elevator shaft in that vestibule before you enter into the annex. So that crack, those cracks on the west wall of the concourse, across the ceiling, down the east wall at that level, and then the corresponding crack just above the concourse in the vestibule outside the annex entrance. Those cracks all line up where there are headers in place to span those gaps. So any seismic movement or shift would cause this kind of behavior. The approach that we discussed with the engineer would be to take a 6-inch cut of plaster, an inch or an inch and a half deep on those 3 areas to reveal the block behind or the structure behind to determine whether or not there's any corresponding crack in the structural members. We'll see whether or not downtown OKC, who helps us when they clean up leaves and take care of the concourse, could be a partner in this effort.
That's good. So we also have the parking garage area where there's an elevator that adjoins the tunnel to come over. Any indication of similar there, or have we talked downtown OKC?
We've talked to downtown OKC
Do they
about
have
that
this-
problem. This is an ongoing issue over there, and there's no evidence of aggravated movement in that location.
Okay.
Right there where the garage door rolls up and down, directly above is the storm sewer, and every time it rains, we have a leak right there. So
So, Stace, typically the unallocated funds that this group has available to them, I think, don't we have to set up a cost center within the capital projects budget, and it's a.
I can't remember whether you can just spend straight out of this account or whether you got to create a line item. Don't remember that detail.
Budget board this Thursday.
Yep. Okay. And how much, so we don't have to come back again, how much would you like to just go ahead and put into that line item in the capital that we're going to create for this?
I believe that for this first part, probably 10,000.
that's right.
And then I think we'd come back, and if we have a problem, we'll have a better sense of what that would cost. So I don't want to try to guess it. We may not have a problem at all other than just plaster.
I
Right,
think
but the
it's
problem is budget board meets once a month. So if you get your plaster person in relatively quick order, get it removed, then we would have to wait to get an engineer on board. What I'm proposing is that we set aside some number so that we don't have to wait until the next month to
Well,
get
that would include the engineer.
the 10,000.
Yeah.
Oh,
well,
my-
I don't
Because I've
know.
already got
Okay,
purchase
I
order. out of my
misunderstood.
budget on it.
I think I would encumber more money if you're planning to cover up funds for the engineer as well. The important part here is whoever we employ to do the demolition, the forensic work, we need to make certain that that person does that work in such a way, understanding that if there isn't any problem, then we go back and we make the necessary repairs in an appropriate way.
And then while this work is ongoing, would it be in the evening? Would it be during the daytime? Would we need to close the tunnel access? And do we need to make people in the building aware that they're going to have to come across the street, et cetera?
I think you definitely probably close the tunnel for the
The-
time the work can be done.
I would suggest the work be done on a weekend,
Okay,
because the way plaster works is they'll have to use a carbide saw set to a depth. And anytime you use carbide in a cement-like product, it's going to create lots and lots of dust.
all right. Well, we'll leave it to you all to work out the logistics of that. Sounds like the weekend is the best alternative, but just make sure that people are aware in the event that that's not possible, they're going to have to access the tunnel from another means. And then the appropriate barriers are set up to keep the dust out of the remainder of the tunnel in the annex. So I would suggest that, and if you want it as a motion, it'll be a motion that we set aside, have Stacy create a capital line item on the upcoming budget board of $25,000 to take care of this problem.
Very good.
So that's my motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, citizens' participation? Seeing none. I think you're ICB. The next one.
Next meeting.
She wants to talk about security. Yep. We couldn't have talked about ICB anyway. It's the rules. Okay, so board comments. Charles?
None.
Gabe?
Nope.
None here. New business?
Motion.
Motion to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That was a second of Charles's
Yeah, it
motion.
was.
All right. Okay.
I have still yet to be added to it. Oh, you're good. Thank you, Jonah. Awesome. I'm in.
Good. All right. Being past the appointed time, call the PBA Advisory Committee to order. Notice the meeting was properly posted on March the 10th. Item 1 is discussion possible action on the minutes of February 28th.
I move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 2, discussion possible action on the ICB exterior envelope project.
I'm sorry, nothing new at this time.
Okay, no action unless you all have questions. 3, discussion possible action regarding security in the ICB building, including sheriff's personnel, equipment, installation of equipment, location, hours of operation, and related costs. Mr. Monroe.
The only new information I have, when we began to discuss the hours of operation of the ICB, initially a 7:30 to 5:30 figure. The sheriff gave an estimate to man the stations at an $11,954 figure per month. The ICB operates different hours than that. And the addition of a third employee necessary to man the security stations would run the cost to almost $18,000 at $17,931 per month for 3 individuals. It seems you could either change the times of operation or leave them and add another security deputy. Other than that, I don't have any new information. Unless you do.
I do.
You have new information?
Yes. 7:30 start will not work for all your tenants,
Are you speaking for all the tenants?
for those that are there, which is my group.
Okay.
And sometimes the 7 o'clock when it's supposed to open work because it's not open time.
But
They're
you have
supposed to be
badged
working.
access, do you not?
Not all my people do know.
Oh.
Okay, so what are the hours again?
The hours operational now are 7:30 to 7:30 to 6, I believe. 7 to 6?
Yes, and then they come over early.
Can you,
Then they come over
Marla,
early.
if you'll use the mic, please? Thank you.
I do not need time.
Well, the public does.
And then they close sometimes before 6. So it's not working for us.
And what, you gotta forgive me, but why is it that you can't access the building through the regular entrance
You go up to
after hours? If you're working up on the weekends, how do you get into the building?
I have access, but not all my group do. And we asked for access to come in through the 4th floor and go over, and that was denied.
When was this and how long ago?
The last 4 months.
No, I'm just saying we got the guy in the room that can maybe help with that.
I don't know who grants permissions, who waves their
Sheriff's
hands
office.
over.
But if you have badge access, you can go directly into the IC.
I do, but those that need to be here at 7 do not. And that's not been an issue because we've had the side entrance.
So the solution to me, rather than paying for an extra personnel, would be for you and your work group to have badge access to be able to get into the building. I'm assuming you're not the only person that occasionally works on the weekend.
Well, and it's not necessarily the weekends, it's before and after.
Well,
so-
I get that, but do you mind to check into that? Get with Marla and get a list of her employees?
If it's solely up to us, like, we fix it today.
I was told it was, that was the email came today. I should have said it to Keith, I guess. No,
No.
Okay, so
he's
we may have a
listening.
solution to that portion of the puzzle pretty quickly then. It's a matter of, okay,
Right.
sure,
And
thank you.
and I also wanted to know the update on getting this security station in there because it's all torn out and then nothing else has been done and that access to that side is.
Well, it's a matter of trying to figure out how we're gonna pay for it, and so we're working on that now.
With that question, does courthouse security, can they not use that fee that is collected for security over there as well?
It is a property that's held by the trust, so I would assume that the courthouse security fee is limited to the buildings that are owned by the Board of County Commissioners.
But there are county employees over there too.
Yeah, I don't know. I've been pushing for security and ICB for a long time. I'm on your side. I'm just telling you what I think the answer would be.
I've also put it out there that it's not my decision, it would be the state auditor. But we may be in agreement to help with that. And he was, we had this discussion last year when we went and visited with Tandy.
So
Yeah, that's how long I've been.
how about this? How about Marla and Keith talk about that aspect of it? Undersheriff's going to check on getting your people badge access. That takes care of that. And now I'm not real interested in paying for a third person when we can very easily change the hours of operation and the people that need to be in there can have access.
I agree. I'm looking for a short answer here. What are the hours for the public seeking services inside the building? What are those building hours
Yeah, what time do those people come in?
for the public?
6, and then on the weekends, I know the sheriff's department has drug testing, some Saturdays during the month where,
So the building right-
has to be open, and I know people come in through the first floor, go through a sheriff's check station up to the 5th floor for drug testing.
Right now, the public has access to the building at 7 a.m. Monday through Friday, correct?
And if we don't hire a third person, they would have access from 7:30 to,
7:30 to 5:30 is the timeline.
okay, and then they could also enter the building here.
They could enter the building through the annex and go across the 4th floor crossover.
And what time would that be?
I don't know what time the building opens here, but closes generally at 6.
Does anyone know what time security, the public can come into the annex? Does anyone in this room?
I know on jury Monday is at 7 o'clock.
Okay.
Pretty sure. I would imagine that it's pretty consistent. I think it's an hour.
I believe it, yeah, I believe it's an hour prior to the
I believe
stated,
too, but I just
the
thought, yeah,
opening time.
yeah, okay. And the building closes at 6, the annex closes at 6, is that correct? And is that the operating hours in of the ICB, 7 to 6, Monday through Friday?
Yeah, generally
Okay.
about something.
Okay. So. And just for one more thing, the public can enter the annex building between 7 and 6 and go to the ICB building. There's no blockage there, is that correct?
Not now. They cannot do that now.
They cannot do that
Currently,
now.
they cannot, no.
They can enter into the outer vestibule for the public defender's office, but the doors accessing the elevator
Yeah,
lobby.
you
are
have to have
secure.
the access card. Okay. Thank you for the clarification.
All right, any action or let all of them talk and get back to us?
Yeah, I'll move to receive report.
Thank you, everyone. I'll second. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Okay. 4, discussion possible action regarding increase in rental rates for ICB.
Just put these items on to discuss any possible rental rate increase. Our utilities are forecast to increase by 15% overall. Insurance rates, we have plugged in a 20% increase.
Just a
So
quick,
if you intend, and the CPI overall is expected to increase by 8%. So
so just a quick question.
Mhm.
Normally we have these discussions more towards the end of the current year, the start of the new year.
why now?
Why now?
For budgeting purposes, for example, in the Investors Capital Building, you've got the public defender who may be trying to work on his budget this time. It would be nice for those governmental entities and the private sector too, to know what an increase, if any, might look like and how that might affect funding and in some cases the bottom line for investors.
And because our leases in ICB are tied to the CPI,
They're not. They can be tied. I think the way
that's what we've done recently, correct?
yes, and I think a 2% figure was used last year. I know the CPI is well beyond that now. And I think the board can use any elasticity in those measures should they move up or down.
So you're recommending what rate? I'm sorry.
I'm not recommending
You're
any
not?
rate.
Okay.
I'm just wanting to open up the discussion, and if there's any direction or any idea as to what rate or what an increase might look like, if any.
So we increase it by 5%. Where do the funds for the increased revenues, where are they going to go?
On the revenue side or for the rent side?
On the revenue side. So obviously you appropriate monthly to an expense account for ICB, correct?
Yes. Those additional sums would be applied towards the increases that we incur for property insurance, for the utilities, for vicinity in the case of the ICB.
And excess beyond those costs would go where?
Those could go into PBA reserve. They could be used in any manner in which the board sees fit.
Is there currently some direction that all funds in PBA reserve are to be utilized for another purpose?
Yes, it's my understanding that all encumbered and unencumbered funds are set aside for the sheriff's new facility.
Okay. And then Keith, at least the ICB, we have county offices over there currently. District 1, District 3, and court services are there.
Uh-huh.
The county pays rent. So for budgeting purposes, as you mentioned earlier, we would.
I think if there's
See
any
an
increase, you'd want
increase.
to take that into consideration while preparing your budget.
Oh, yeah, Cody, remind. Okay. All right. Hi, Marla.
Will you speak into the mic, please?
I would like to recommend, and it be considered that if rental rates are to be increased, that they should not be a straight across the board. They should be in reflection to what facilities you have. Case in point, we do not have running water. So someone that has a private bathroom and running water, we shouldn't be paying them the same amount as them. Because that's something that I've requested, and I get it, you can't have running water everywhere.
You
Since
have running water at the windows.
All right.
see what I put up with?
Hey, you guys have,
Surely if you decide something with the security involved, that would weigh into, in my view, an increase in the rental rates as well.
so what are you looking for, Keith?
Just a recognition that costs are increasing and that if you're going to make any changes in the rental rate, it should be done earlier rather than later in order to allow those people who are budgeting at this time to take that into consideration.
So we'll be just deferring action on this for the next meeting.
I'm sorry.
Good.
I mean, I guess there's no recommended action. We should probably just defer this until the next meeting, spend a week or two to figure out what something reasonable would look like, since there's not going to be any actual concrete.
You know, if you threw any kind of a number out there that chases the CPI, you can always at mid-year make adjustments.
I may be mistaken, but I thought the policy of the PBA was to adjust rental rates based upon the CPI. I thought they took affirmative action to tie rates to CPI. So that we might need to clarify that first, because we may not need to spin our wheels. If CPI is 8%, then it's an 8% increase.
Well, the way it's calculated may make a difference. Usually we take the annual figure from last year in this case, which may not be representative of the cost going forward. So we're in some respects chasing the increase more so now, unless you anticipate what kinds of increases to expect. I think certainly the insurance premiums and at least the utility costs are indicative of where things are headed.
Okay. All right. All right. Mr. Compton, if you want to use the mic, that'd be great.
It can be calculated monthly if you want to do it that way. To take into consideration the recent increase.
Yeah.
What does the lease say? Does the lease say it's
The
part of it or not?
If I remember correctly, the utility costs in the lease are built into the price per square foot, which would encompass the increased rental.
But
That
not
would
fixed for
encompass
the
it.
year. There are, okay.
Yeah, if we're basing increases on CPI, then it begs the question, when are you setting the line on when that CPI, when you're looking at it? If you're looking at it in December, and I think Keith's point is CPI is going to continue to increase potentially at a fairly high rate over the next several months, but that's going to be captured next year. So you got to pick a date, whether it's December 31st, and then you do them based on that, or you do it in February when we set our.
And the lease doesn't address that.
I think the
The date that it's looked at. I mean, okay, sounds okay.
And to me, we start our budget process in February. We use our end of February months whenever we're looking at our estimate of needs for the next year. So to me, it seems like it would be appropriate to look at CPI either in February or in March. And I believe for February it was 7.9% is what I saw this morning. So
I think in the body of the lease too, it also gives the PBA board the opportunity to set rates as they see fit. I don't know the exact language, but there is that option.
Any other,
No, I don't have any
okay,
other. No.
anything else here? All right, is there a motion to receive the report on item 4?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
5, discussion possible action on rental rates for the Lincoln property. Same issues, correct?
Conversation.
Okay. Yeah. No action there. 6, discussion possible action regarding increasing rental rates for the Kraus building.
I think as long as we own it, I'm not sure whether or not title has been transferred, but that certainly will have an impact on that discussion.
When will we know about title and transfer, et cetera?
I can't answer that.
Does anybody?
I don't know.
No. Can you endeavor to find that out prior to the next meeting? Because that would be important, it would seem, as we're discussing rental rates.
I'll ask the questions, but again, any question I ask will be directed towards the chair's office.
I mean, my understanding is that the sheriff is allowed to stay there until another facility is either built or found, correct? So that's
Yes.
really kind of open-ended right now. That's my limited understanding of it.
Yeah, my recollection of the agreement and the terms of the sale was it was limited to about 22 months.
Okay.
Right. That. Yeah. Right. We're not the agreement for sale did not there wasn't a lease agreement in conjunction with the agreement to sell. It indicated that the sheriff could stay there, so I'm assuming that's rent free based upon the terms of the sale agreement. And to Cody's point, if we don't own the building, say next month we transfer title and we no longer own the building, then the sheriff is in a building that's owned by the state, and we shouldn't be charging ourselves rent.
Michael, do you know?
In that document, it references us paying $1, and then also in that document, it refers to us doing the maintenance and upkeep of the facility during that time frame, 24 months.
Yeah, but that's not continuing to pay rent out of the general fund into the PBA, right?
But
yeah.
As I was walking to the microphone, I was hit with different things that might have been unknown, and that's what I just.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so it's a $1 rent for 2 years that we pay the state, and then we pay maintenance costs. That's my recollection of the agreement as well. Yeah. And then, Michael, I know you're working on it. Any indication when we might?
Is there a rest of the question?
When we might transfer the title?
There was a reference date of them going to let the bonds April 22nd. The document, we went past closing date, but the document needs to have a new closing date, and we've got 3 BOCC meetings between now and then, and we're asking for the acreage is 5 acres more or less, but because the property that they're allowing us is triangular in shape, we're asking for additional land to this, I believe the south, and that's where they're working on whether or not they're willing to do that. But in addition to that, we also have asked, because building a building may or may not take more than 24 months, whether they'll allow for more time in the language to allow us to be residing there.
So the short answer, we're going to see this again on BOCC.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. So it may or may not mean that we continue to pay rent,
Well,
at least until the end of this year.
But help me, so I mean, if we hadn't sold the building, we own it for zero, we don't have a mortgage on it, right? Now that with this transaction, we're paying $1 a year on it, so we're talking about the difference of $1, or am I not
Talking
understanding?
about somewhere on the order of $200,000 or $300,000 that the sheriff's budget or the county general fund pays for rent into PBA. So we're talking about more than $1. And then so
No, I'm
if we
just-
no longer own the building and then the lease specifies it's $1 a year, then we don't need to continue to pay general fund dollars into the PBA. We're losing, there's revenue reduction on the PBA side. Okay. Yeah, that's what I'm.
As long as we own the property, I think we should maintain it. And certainly, I think our insurance carrier would expect us to insure the property. So
Yeah.
my guess is until the title changes hands.
Right, that's what I'm
probably
trying
wanna
to,
make sure
to
that we
get
should
at.
insure it.
As long as we own the property, we have some ongoing costs, one of which is paying rent derived from the general fund to the PBA. But once we don't own the property, subject to the terms of the agreement, we pay $1 a year. We handle the maintenance issues. And then I would assume that since we're not the owner of the property, that we're not paying property insurance.
Well, and the maintenance, I think would have to be spelled out in a lease agreement, those terms. And
Okay,
I'm.
all right, okay.
agreeable.
All right, thank you. Motion to receive that report.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 7, discussing possible action for rental rates in the metro parking garages.
Thought we might charge the skateboarders. We seem to have more of them than people who park vehicles.
Keith, typically when we've looked at rate increases in our garages, you've done an analysis of rates around the area to see where we're at. Has that occurred yet?
The analysis has not, but I've seen that some areas are charging less. There's fewer people parking downtown generally, so the pie is shrinking.
So
We'll do an
regard to
analysis
that-
and come back.
Yes, please.
We've tried to stay below any other private parking facility. Generally speaking, we'll do the same.
Can you, you may have looked at this previously in the past, but currently our garage is closed on the weekends. Is that correct?
To cash customers, yes.
Is there a possibility that we could include forecasted revenues if we were to go 7 days a week for cash customers? Is there a need? Would
I
we
don't
fill
think so.
that?
Street parking is available. The surface lots are available. I think anything to improve the revenues there is going to require some outside the box thinking.
All right. Anything else?
Move to receive report.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Citizens participation? Board comments? Gabe?
Nope.
Charles?
None.
None here. New business? Adjourn.
Motion.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.